In this episode of the Neil Wilkins podcast, I'm joined by somebody who has got a very, very interesting story. And we're going to talk about AI content creation at some point in this journey. But Nico Lagan joins me today. Hi there, Nico.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking before pressing the record button here about something which is really close to my heart, which is kind of traveling in the States. I mean, my wife and I got married a few years back in Arizona. And as soon as you mentioned Arizona as part of your big, long journey, and we'll talk about that a bit, I thought, no, we've got to just get into some kind of proper conversation before we talk AI and content and all that kind of stuff that's trending right now. So let's just backtrack just a little bit, because I said, you're traveling a lot right now, Nico, aren't you? And then you came back with, oh yes, you would not believe. So kind of for the audience, just give a little bit of a flavor of your recent journey, because it's incredible how far you're traveling.
Let me check a map here. I'm just going to pull it up to make sure I'm not lying to say where we've been, because we drove more than, I think we did between 15,000 and 20,000 miles in the past 13 months or so. And I've been hauling a 11,000-pound monster behind the truck, and I have the motorcycle in the bed of the truck. So it's been definitely interesting. Looking at a map, we started in New York. We did New York State, Pennsylvania, Virginia. Then we went through Kentucky. No, we went through Tennessee. Then we went Arkansas. We did Texas. We went through New Mexico. We did Arizona. We did part of Los Angeles, or California, should I say. Then we went back up to Colorado. We went all the way east again to Virginia, North Carolina. Now we're in Alabama. So yeah, we've
what a year. And you say 13 months.
Yeah.
I mean, most people wouldn't get half of that done in a lifetime, let alone 13 months.
Yeah.
Why? Is the big question is why?
Well, you know what it comes down to is what happened during COVID in Canada. Like, the restrictions were absolutely brutal. And before we started this whole thing, I was a sales engineer for a telecommunication company, and I was in high-end sales for 12 years. Like, I was in the telecom world for almost 20 years. And there was a lot of restrictions. They prevented us from doing a lot of things. And back in March 2020, when this whole craziness started, I was living in the city because all my customers are there, but I also had a house in the middle of nowhere that I was renting on Airbnb. And I moved from the city. I got rid of my place in the city, and I moved to my house in the middle of the forest. Like, imagine log house, top of a mountain in the middle of the woods. And I moved there by myself with my dog. And I spent about a year and a half by myself there. Then my girlfriend ended up joining me for the last year, but I was there for 2.5 years, and now we've been on the road for 13 months. So I haven't really lived a regular life in almost, 4 years. It's going to be 4 years soon. So wow. It's life of discovery. And this is what my first book was about, like finding purpose. And this is how I did it, by spending a lot of time alone. I don't know how spiritual you are, or how your audience, how the level of spirituality that your audience have, but I'm a big fan of Buddhism. Like, I was involved in Buddhism for a long time, and now I'm more focused around Christianity. But it's interesting to see, you got Buddha, you got Jesus Christ, that spent an extended amount of time by themselves, finding the devil, basically facing their own demons. So I got to do this. This was the whole point. When this whole thing happened, I just chose, I'm like, as an extrovert, what can I do to challenge myself? How can I make it? How can I put it to the next level? And spending time by myself was probably the scariest thing that I could think of. So that's what I did.
I love that. Really kind of facing those moments. And it was, wasn't it? Back in those as you say, crazy times. It's only, when you think about it, it's really not that long ago, but it just felt so different, didn't it, to everything that had gone before. And I think for a lot of us, it was, I wouldn't say an awakening, but it was a moment where we could just challenge what normality was prior to those times. And I think for a lot of us, we've come out as changed people on this side of it. And, for most of us, for the better, I would say. A lot of kind of self-discovery. It's interesting that you say, as an extrovert, going to live in a log cabin. I mean, that must have been quite something.
But you know what's interesting? Yes, it was, no doubt, no doubt. It was the scariest thing I could do. And you're talking to a guy that was amateur champion in Muay Thai, so I used to fight. You're talking to a guy that is an adrenaline junkie. So I'm a motorcyclist. I love to deep sea dive. I've done about the only thing that I want to do that I haven't done yet is jump out of an airplane. That's about it. All the rest, when I felt like doing it, I do it. So you're talking to a guy that's used to challenging himself. But this was definitely the scariest thing I could do, is isolate myself from others, because I used to teach martial art, and so I'd have my corporate job. I'd basically get up, read, go to the gym, find a gym that's closest to my next customer meeting, go work out, do all my sales calls during the day. Then when I was done, go back home, take a nap. Then I was teaching for 2-3 hours that night. So that was my life. And I was coaching fighters. I was coaching regular people. So my weekends was me at fights, coaching people. So it was basically, when COVID happened, they removed the gyms. Couldn't go to gym. I couldn't go to the gym anymore. I couldn't go to. I wasn't able to go to martial art gyms anymore. My girlfriend and I both chose not to be vaccinated, so they closed everything. All we could do is grocery store and pharmacy. That's the only place we were allowed to go. So it puts everything back in perspective, because you know when you take accountability for your actions, when you take accountability for your life, you realize that you don't have control over a lot of things. You control your emotions, action, and reactions, but you don't control what others do to you. I couldn't control that the government was putting restrictions on me. I couldn't stop that. I couldn't change that. But if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have challenged the status quo in which I found myself, because I was in an extremely high paying job, but I wasn't happy. I didn't like the fact that people are trying to force me something I don't want to do. And I'm not the type to live my life on my knees. I'm the type to say, you know what? Okay, do your best, but you're not going to like my answer. You're not going to like what I'm going to do in response to what you're doing. And, this is where my content creation started. I sat down. I'm like, listen, what do I control? Can I control what they want to do to me? No. But I had a very long career as a sales guy, as a sales engineer, so very technical sales job. And I'm like, what are my skills that I've acquired over that career, and what's transferable to something else? And this is where I started. I had the idea for a podcast. Started with two $50 microphone, H6 Zoom recorder, and almost 4 years later, like let's call it 3 years to make sure I'm not lying, but 3 years later, I'm more than 300 or 400 podcasts in. I've grew a content platform from a few thousand views a month to now I average between 5 to 10 million views a month. I've developed, so I really went from working for somebody else doing what they're telling me to do to let's do something that I really want to do. And now I help people develop their platform. Like I'm a strategist, and I incorporate AI in their workflow to help them produce better content faster, that has more reach, that connects more with their customers. So life is very interesting when you have to have balls in life. It all starts with there. If, like, I'm writing my second book on the 5 virtues of a good man, and courage is the first virtue. You need to have courage in order to do anything. If you want to do something that society tells you is not okay, you need to have the balls to say, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to care what people say. I'm not going to care what they think, if they support me or not, because it matters to me. So life is very interesting when you don't have a victim mentality.
Yeah, you are preaching to the converted here, actually, Nico. You really are. Literally everything that you've said there. And it's interesting actually, because when you describe this stuff, I can feel that you're the extrovert version of me, because I'm exceptionally introverted. Even
Yeah.
though, I talk in front of big audiences, I kind of love the podcasting thing, I love the conversational thing, but I'm exceptionally introverted. So that whole idea of going into the log cabin, oh yes, heaven, absolute heaven. So that is not a difficult thing for me to do. And yet all of the things that kind of, I guess society would say, rebellious element that you're exhibiting there, I totally feel that. I totally get that. In every single way you've described it, I'm the introverted version of what you've just said. It's a carbon copy, and it's really interesting actually to meet really a like-minded soul who's approaching it in an alternative way to me, and yet the end game is exactly the same, which is to make a difference, add value, get a kind of deep level of understanding so that you can see how your purpose can provide even more value. And it's kind of almost this constant journey of how can I do more? How can I serve more? How can I provide more value? But in my way. I'm not going to do it like you. I'm not going to do it the traditional route, even though you're probably a lot more extrovert with it. I'm a lot more introvert with it, but the end goal is the same. Very
But
interesting, isn't it? Kind of bucking the trend.
What's amazing though is, I don't know if you've done your 16 personality test, like the MBTI, to try to focus the type of person you are. And as much as I'm very extroverted, the result years ago that I had was giving me somewhere like a 65-35. So yes, I'm extroverted, but I'm very comfortable. Now it's interesting that I kind of changed the way I am, because I used to not want to be alone. And you could look at it, just look at my schedule. I was always busy, always, always, always busy. And is it really because I wanted to be busy, or was it just the fact that deep down I was avoiding spending too much time alone? Because if you look at a lot of extrovert, that's what they do. Because again, the difference between an introvert and an extrovert is just the way you recharge your batteries. What do you need to do that's going to make you more relaxed at the end of it? To me, was to be in front of people all the time, to be surrounded by that energy. I feed off of people. But an introvert like you want to spend time alone. This is where you recharge. This is where you relax. This is where you feel in your element. But it's interesting when you have the courage to test it out. Even if you're an extrovert, spending time by yourself is something you should do. Like I got a feeling that extroverts tend to push the envelope less than introvert. Because if you look at you're an introvert and you record podcasts, you do shows, you're on stage in front of people, you're pushing the envelope. My best friend is very similar to you. We're almost the same when you look at the 16 personalities. The big difference, he's an introvert, I'm an extrovert, but the rest is all the same. So he tends to push himself more because he's a sales guy. So he has to be in front of people day in, day out. He has to give speeches. He has to give presentations. So it's interesting how he pushes the envelope of his comfort all the time, while extrovert very rarely will take it upon themselves to say, you know what, instead of going on vacation where there's a lot of people, I'm going to rent a cabin in the middle of nowhere by myself. I'll leave my phone behind. I'll have no distractions. I'll bring a few books. I'll bring my dog, and that's it. So this is what I realized, that most of us don't push extroverts. We don't tend to push for the other side. And yet now I cherish my time alone. I absolutely need it. I love it. And I found a way to recharge my batteries by spending time alone too, because I forced myself to do it.
So did you feel that it was by pushing beyond the natural preference? Are you ENTP?
ENTJ.
ENTJ. Oh, yeah. I was close. Yeah,
I'm one of those crazy commanders. I'm very small percentage of people, like less than 3% of people, but I'm an extrovert, and I'm not easy to deal with. I'm extremely demanding of myself and the people around me. I'm very bossy.
But the NTJ is interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, ENTJs are out there. But it makes sense, because if you look at if you looked at my social media, you know that I don't care. I don't care what people think. I don't care if I'm hurting your feelings. I don't care. I'm not doing it on purpose to piss people off, but I'm not going to tiptoe around your feelings because you might get hurt by what I have to say. But at the same time, with being an ENTJ, it is either you love me or you hate me. There's nobody out there has no opinion of me. I will never leave anybody just like, oh, I'm not sure I have to. No, right away. You will either really like me or absolutely hate me. It's always like that. And the content shows it. I get thousands and thousands and thousands of comments every month, and you see it. You see it. You just look at the comments, and it's always either extremely good or extremely bad, always.
Yeah, and I love that there's a real clarity behind that. So I'm INTJ, so I knew there was a match.
There you
here.
go.
I really
like
did. You could just tell. Yeah,
we just switched the first letter.
yeah,
So
exactly. But for those listening to this, if you don't get this, it's Myers-Briggs. It apparently, according to my wife, who is a Myers-Briggs consultant, it is not about a skill set. It is about preference. I keep saying, as an INTJ, no, it's about skill set. But she'll always challenge me. No, it's just preference. It's not that you're great. I think, yeah, I'm INTJ, so I am great. It's kind of we have this kind of internal joke about this thing, but it is fascinating, isn't it? You can feel your way through a relationship or a conversation with somebody. Once you get a sense of their preference and where they're coming from, it changes everything, doesn't it? You get a real sense of connection when there is that clarity. I'm sure you find that too, don't you?
It's very interesting because I've always had extremely good instincts, and I've never been worried to follow them. Whatever it was, the only time I didn't follow, I regretted it. The biggest mistakes I made is when I wasn't listening to my instincts. And it's very interesting because I'm extremely logical. But at the same time, I was just talking about this last week on a podcast where I will take my decisions with my heart, with my instincts. And then once it's taken with logic, I will try to explain why I took that decision. I will make sense of my decision after I already took it. I don't sit down and try to analyze all the little things. I'm like, no. Okay, this is the situation. How do I feel about it? What does my heart tell me? This is it. Okay, let's do it. Let's double down on this, and I'll try to explain my rational thoughts afterwards. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, there's a clarity with that, isn't there? Because you're giving yourself up to, in that moment, a higher power, something bigger, the Matrix universe, whatever 100%. You kind of want to describe it. Yeah, which 100%. Is very interesting. Do you find that is where, I mean, manifestation is such a hot topic right now, and so many people kind of trying to explore it and understand it. Do you find that for you has been, and I guess it's playing true in the traveling that you're doing, that kind of opens up opportunities that would otherwise be closed off? Because it feels there's a real freedom with kind of letting yourself to a higher power that will open up opportunities that you as a single human being would otherwise restrict yourself by. Does it open up things for you?
It goes a bit further than that. Yes, it does, but you need to be self-aware. I think this is where it's key. Like if you look at all societal problems that we have today, they can be boiled down to one single thing: accountability. Point me a problem and I'll show you somebody that did not want to do their jobs, that was a victim, that blame others, that decided they weren't doing it. Now nobody's doing it or somebody else has to do it, which every problem out there can be explained by a lack of accountability. The day that I realized this in my early 20s, because I was a drug addict, I was an alcoholic, I sold drugs. I was not a good person when I was younger. I've done a lot of bad stuff in my life. And when I first started being accountable, you start being self-aware. Because the first thing you need to admit that, I say this to people all the time. If your life sucks, it's your fault. There's no other way around it. It is your fault. You don't like your life? Okay, change it. It's really that simple. It ain't easy, but it is really that simple. And the day you start taking accountability for your actions, you start sitting down and being self-aware. And this is why I think things like meditations are so useful. Because you're just being yourself, reflecting on what's going on at that exact moment. So for you to take ownership of yourself, to start understanding the type of individual that you are, what you really want, because you call it a higher power. I call it God. Like I'm a Christian. I'm very connected to God. I speak to God every day. Do I do manifestation? Absolutely. I put it out there. I'm always saying what I want. I'm always thinking about what I want. I do self-hypnosis. You know, Bruce Lee said to never talk ill of yourself because your mind does not know the difference. So never speak ill. Always think positive. Always see the good in things. And also pay attention to what's going on around you. Always understand, why is something happening? What caused this? Because you had your role to play in there. And this is where it's so powerful, because manifestation is great, but if you're not self-aware, you won't even know that it's actually going on. So this is what's interesting. And all of this was compounded by me spending a lot of time alone without distractions. When I was in the woods, there's no lying anymore. You will talk to yourself. You will start seeing all the bad things that you've done. Because even if I realized that 20 years ago, it's very easy to get stuck in a grind. You're just grinding. Then you completely forget who you are. You have no idea where you're at anymore, because you're so focused on one single thing, and it's the end that you forget yourself. That the beauty of life is what happens when you're trying to achieve your goals. It's not necessarily achieving your goals. Yes, of course, that's great. But we always forget the traveling that we've done from A to B in order to get to that goal. And yeah, traveling's been amazing. I can't even start to explain how many people that were simply amazing that we've met. And they always tend to appear in your life when you need them the most. You just need to be aware that you do require help. And it's funny, people always tend to show up. I don't believe in coincidences. If you're somebody that believes in coincidences, I can tell you, you're not self-aware. You don't take accountability for your actions, and you're probably a victim, because there's no coincidences. If you start looking at what goes on, there is a force out there that is giving you exactly what you're asking for. If you're negative, guess what? Your life will suck more and more and more. But if you're positive and you realize the beautiful things that are happening around you, the people that somehow enter your life for what appears to be no reason, you start being extremely grateful for everything that happens, no matter what. And this is where the power comes from. This is really where you can, I used to call it instincts, but now it's become my faith. I understand that it's not instinct. It's because I follow my heart. My heart's connected to God. God talks to me through my heart. And I've always been listening without knowing who I was listening to. But this is how I found purpose. This is why I'm on the road that I'm on right now. And my life is always going to be interesting. It might suck, it might be good at that moment, but it's always going to be interesting, because I am so self-aware and I just put it out there. Whatever needs to get done, I do it, and I don't question it.
That's the definition of properly living, isn't it? Properly being alive is actually accepting that you don't always have to have the positive as an outcome. It could be that in these little micro moments, there's a negative, but then there's the learning. Everybody talks about that. And I think most people understand that now, that you learn most when there is a negative scenario or situation. And as long as you're aware and you accept it and you don't take it necessarily personally, because it probably is the other person, it's not you. And, all of these kind of things that we learn as we get older, I guess, and as we have more life experience. Yeah, it becomes really, really interesting, doesn't it, to see how that then plays out in future reactions and future kind of moments, because you can't open the box and then not close it without knowing what's in the box. And so the more you open yourself up to this, the more you are self-aware and you stop and you listen. And it's really interesting, isn't it? Because what you're accepting almost by doing this is the idea of change, that nothing stays the same and that everything is in constant evolution or constant flux. And I guess you must see that. I mean, particularly as you're traveling, it kind of almost must emphasize to you every day that everything is changing in every moment, because it genuinely is in your world, isn't it?
One of my biggest realizations was to admit to myself that pain and suffering are the greatest of teachers. Nobody learns when everything's going well. You learn when you hit rock bottom. You learn when you're suffering and you cannot continue the way you're going right now. Because, you know, they talk about the comfort zone being a bad thing, but nobody ever puts it into perspective in a proper way. The reason the comfort zone is so dangerous is because you're not hurting enough to change. It's not that painful to continue the status quo, so you'll never want to change. That's why, you know, years ago I was reading an article and they were explaining how there's a team of scientists that approached people on their deathbed. And they asked them, what are your biggest regrets? What do you regret more? Now that you're about to die, what are your biggest regrets? You know what the number one regret of the dying is?
Spending too much time working, probably.
Nope. Not living the life they wanted to live and living a life that others expected of them. This is the number one. And as the day I read this, and this was a long time ago, I chose right then and there, I will never be one of those people. Never. I don't even care. I'm 41 years old. I don't even care if I die at 50. I've lived more than 3 lifetimes already compared to the people that I meet. And I've met a lot of people through the years, through podcasting, through traveling. And I find it sad. I really find it sad that people play it safe all the time and they're not happy. There's such a thing, you know, I'm a big fan of Buddhism, and they call it the middle way. There's always going to be goods. There's always going to be bad. Just try to be somewhere in the middle. Understand that they're both happening and try to be somewhere in the middle no matter what. Even if it's not good, still try to bring it back to the middle, because this is where the magic is, you know, I don't know if you're a fan of Alan Watts, but in one of his talks, Alan Watts talks about the role of the Joker, which in the way he explains it for Buddhism is somebody that understands that life is a joke. You're going to die no matter what. So whatever happens between the moment that you're born and the moment that you die is a joke, because you're going to die no matter what. You're not getting away from it. So if you understand that life is a big joke, that you're going to die, so no matter what you do, you're going to still end up at the same place as I'm going to be. You're going to end up dead one day. I'm going to end up dead. Very different path, but we're going to end up at the same place. So he's like, try to understand that you can pull yourself from it, understanding that this is not even real, so you can laugh at it. Say all the bad that happens to you. What's the worst thing that can happen? You die. Everything else tends to get the volume turned down. You know, Fight Club talks about it. I'm a big fan of the movie Fight Club, and they explain when they start fighting, most people are scared to fight. But the day you start to embrace that it might happen, you start developing the skills to know how to fight and know how to defend yourself, you tend to realize that everything around you is not that important. You're like, you know what? Okay, sure. My life, my job might suck. Today might be brutal, but at least I'm not fighting. So if you compare everything back to the worst thing that can happen, you're like, yeah, my life is not that bad. I have absolutely no reasons to feel the way that I feel, because it's really not that bad. It's interesting when you change that mindset, when you just choose to focus on the things that really matter and always put it back into perspective. Bring it back to the middle and say, okay, how bad is it? Really, how bad is it? What is the worst thing that's going to happen to me? Oh, that's it? Well, okay, I guess it doesn't. I have no reasons to feel the way or act the way that I do right now, because it's really not that bad.
There's a real kind of purity, isn't there, here? There's a real clarity. This stuff is so simple, but in its simplicity, it's for most people super complex, because I guess the big question for a lot of people is, yes, it's all right, Nico, you saying this, but how do I do it? And yet the answer is so simple. It's you do virtually none of what you've been doing to this point. You stop, you meditate, you're silent, you listen, you're self-aware, you just stay in the moment. And that's actually about doing nothing. And yet that is one of the hardest things for most people to do, is do nothing, is to stop talking, stop thinking, just do nothing. There's just a real juxtaposition here, isn't there? There's real kind of awkwardness, because you know it, because you've experienced it and you've gone through it and you've come out the other side with this real kind of wisdom. How do people kind of make that jump, do you think? We will come on to talking about AI content creation in a minute. We really will. I mean, this is just too good. And there is a link. I do have a link between it and this, but I'm just really, really fascinated in your take on that clarity piece.
I'm writing my second book right now, and it's called The 5 Virtues of a Good Man. So I'm a big fan of Stoicism, and I kind of broke down their principle into five virtues that every man out there should have, and courage being the number one, as we were talking earlier. But it comes down to mastering yourself. This is all where it starts. And if I look through my journey, I've been hitting the gym and doing martial arts for 20 years. And I was a high school dropout. I dropped out of school. I was 15 years old. I went back in my early 20s. But after I finished that period of really not being a good person, the day I decided to take accountability, I started looking and like, okay, what can I do? And, the easiest thing to do is to master your body. If you start doing simple things as going to the gym, start looking more at what you eat, start exercising, you start noticing it. There's no lying. To this day, there's no way to cheat that. What's his first name? Cardone, the billionaire sales guru there. He did a podcast with a friend of mine, and he made a super good point on that podcast. The guy's like 23 years old, so he looked at him, was like, "Do you have abs?" And the guy's shredded, so he's like, "Of course I have abs. What are you talking about?" And he explains that 1 out of 10 Americans is a millionaire, but less than 1% of people in the US have visible abs. And to me, I'm just sitting there and I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. I totally understand. It is 10 times, if not harder, to have a we're not talking about 6% body fat and you're shredded. Just saying that you have visible abs is 10 times harder than becoming a millionaire. Yet every single person out there is capable of having a six-pack, having abs, being in shape. This is something, I don't care that you're in a wheelchair. I don't care your legs don't work. You don't even need to go to the gym. Just eat properly. Stop treating your body like a dumpster and start treating it the way you would treat your car. We treat our cars better than we do our own bodies. And we wonder afterwards why we're not feeling very good. Like, I don't believe in depression. I don't believe men ever get depressed. I think men lack purpose. Men lack purpose. They don't have Have you ever met somebody that's depressed that has purpose? No. Have you ever met somebody that has purpose that's depressed? No. And how do you get to the path of finding purpose? By first mastering your body. There's no lying. When you're sitting in front, when you're in front of the mirror, you know right away it's physical. You see it. Am I getting better or am I getting worse? If I'm getting worse, I'm doing something wrong. What am I doing wrong? If I'm getting better, I'm doing something right. Continue doing it. They say it's 21 days to form a new habit. Hit the gym for 2 months, 4 or 5 times a week. Start watching what you eat. Give me 2 months of that. This will open up a whole new horizon to you. Before you even realize you started being disciplined. Like, we're so focused on motivation, but motivation's attached to your emotions. When the days that everything goes well, you're going to be motivated. The days that it doesn't go well, guess what? Motivation's out the window. And this is not just for the gym, it's for everything. So this is why, to me, when I first discovered the gym, started doing martial art, completely changed my approach, because now it's been 20 years. I cannot not do it. It's hard for me to I took a week off last week because I did not feel well. And I listened to my body. I'm very self-aware. I'm like, you know what? Take the day off. Take the week off. Now I'm going to go back today. And I guarantee you I'm more muscular than I was last week, just because I gave my body a break. But this is what is so important. When you start connecting with your body, you start developing skills like discipline that will give you access to start mastering your mind. Once you gain control of your body, it opens up the pathway between your body and your mind. Once you get to that point, you can start understanding what you're doing well and what you're not doing well. And you can start pushing your mind. Because for the first time in your life, it's going to be operating like it should be operating. Our body's like an engine. Treat it with the respect that it deserves. Guess what? Your mind's going to start operating at a level that you have never experienced before. And this has been proven time and time again. I got a guy that I did a podcast with, and he runs a lot of programs for men. He's in fitness, and he was explaining that all of the guys that follow him when it comes to their diet, to their training, within a year, they either got a promotion, they quit their job, and they started their own business. It never fails. Every single time you show a man how to master their body, and then you start challenging them intellectually, they completely evolve. They completely change the way that they are, because their body is finally working the way that it should. Their mind is now capable of being molded and developed. And then you add spirituality or faith into it. I like to call it faith. You start connecting the mind, body, and soul. You're unstoppable. You're absolutely unstoppable when that connection is done. But that means that you need to become more of a jack of all trade. And this is what pride is not a good thing. Pride's a sin, but I like to say I pride myself on doing this. We're over specialized. Look at our society. Look at professionals. Everybody wants to be specialized in something, but they don't understand. We see life as silos, but we don't understand that everything is connected. Every single thing out there is connected. We're connected to each other. Everything that we do is connected. We all come from the same place. We're all going to go back to the same place when we die. And this is where it becomes very interesting. And this is why I like philosophy, because you start seeing everything as a whole instead of seeing it as silos. So you start understanding, if I do this, when I go on a week and I'm not eating properly, I'm becoming like I'm treating myself, if you will. I start not feeling well. I'm not productive in my job. My meditations are harder and harder. I'm not focused. I don't want to be there. And it all starts by what I eat. It's amazing when you start understanding how everything you do is connected. The people you have around you, you are the sum of the 5 people around you. The type of music that you listen to, the type of TV that you watch, how you treat your body, what you study, what you learn, what you read. It's absolutely amazing how everything's connected.
And it is so interesting the way you describe it. I can't imagine anyone listening or watching this thinking, no, I don't want that. It is just so it's just so
Yeah.
naturally magnetic, isn't it? It pulls you in. You think, yeah, I could do this. I'm not doing it now, but I could do this. And I can imagine people thinking, that is absolutely, for 2024, that's where I want to be. That's what I want to be doing. And if Nico's right, and all I need to do is just spend a couple of months, but spend a couple of months really focusing in on the gym work, or just something more physical, something more attentive to the body, the rest of it is going to fall into place. And this feels so empowering, but so powerful. So my big question to you then is, and this is where we've made this incredible link
transition.
with AI, the transition into AI, here it comes, is, okay, but we're being forced into this technological revolution. And oh my God, is this a revolution? Because this time last year, we would not have had this conversation.
No.
AI is here to solve our challenge it commercially, business-wise, to solve all the problems of the world. It's here to create amazing content that we could never imagine ourselves being able to do. And it's all this amazing hype of all these possibilities that feel completely unhuman in the way that you've been describing how to be a self-aware human. Where can we go with this then? Because if the whole kind of groundswell towards being a professional, starting a business, you describe some of the examples of people there, men there sort of starting a business as a result of being on this new journey. But then when they get into that world, it's like, oh, well, it's all automated. We've got chatbots, we've got AI, we've got all this content creation stuff going on. It takes away the human of the human that you've just described. Now, philosophically, then, this is the philosophy bit, how are we going to cope with this? Because it's going off in different directions, isn't it? It feels like it.
It's interesting because I'm part of a master group with very influential content creators, some of the biggest ones on the planet. And I don't participate a lot because I don't really like the way they're going. Like, I don't like the mindset that they have. I don't like the way they create their content, because it's exactly what you're saying. Like, they're posting stuff like, hey, look, I found a new AI tool that I don't even need to record anymore. I can simply write it, and it digitally copies you, and it will talk to you. It will talk for you. And I'm sitting there, and all I can think is, how lazy can you be? So you're basically, the most powerful tool that you have is your authenticity. This is what people will react to every single time. If you're not authentic, people will not like what you do. They might not understand it. They might not know why they don't like you, but it is because you're not being authentic. And a lot of AI is causing that right now. So it's important to understand where AI fits in all of this. Like, as a guy that uses AI multiple times a day, and I use, name an app, name a software, I probably used it. Like, because this is what I do, I have to test what's best for my clients. But I use AI every day, multiple times a day. But I will never replace myself in front of a camera for AI. That is something I refuse to do, because it shows right away. It's a great, AI can be used as a great thing to do structure. Like, I love to write, so every video that I do out there has a structure to it. I first write it out. I will write something so that I have a structure. I'm not somebody that likes to read off a teleprompter, because, again, it sounds fake. Most people don't have that. It's very far in between the people that are capable of reading off a teleprompter and making it authentic. There's not a lot of people that are capable of. Plus, you can always see the eyes. But now there's an AI tool that will redirect your eyes. This is where we're at now. Like, I was looking there. There's an AI tool right now that, if I could look at a teleprompter like this, once I run it through the software, it will move my eyes to look in the camera. This is where we're at right now. So it's absolutely amazing that instead of building the tools, the skills to be able to look at a camera and be yourself, we'd rather rely on something fake to make us better, instead of making us better while staying authentic. And I think that they're going to pay the price. Like, those influencers that I'm talking about, they're going to end up paying the price. Guys like me will continue growing the way we're growing, because people can tell that you're being authentic. And at the end of the day, this is where as much as my company, we specialize in integrating AI in content creation. Just we want to optimize it. We want to streamline the whole thing. We want to give some time back to you. We want to make your creation process easier. But I will always be, one of the big thing that I do with my clients is the coaching part. Is, how do you develop the skills to be in front of that camera? How do you create rapport with somebody on the other side of the camera? How do you take NLP techniques, sales techniques, marketing techniques, psychology technique, and apply them to your content creation? It doesn't matter that you're a podcaster, a coach, you run a business. It don't matter. The principles are always the same. They're based on your personal skills, your MBTI, like we were talking about. You develop your natural skills and you create an image or message that's based around you. And AI can do that. It cannot do that for you. And I'm ready to bet that it will bite them in the bottom at one point. Because you can tell. Do you watch AI content? I don't. It bothers me. And I know I'm not the only one. Most people are like that.
So do you think then that if that is correct, and it feels correct, it just feels the right thing, is that the way that you're positioning it, I guess, with your clients, is it's not a replacement for their personality and 100%. Their humanness, but it's much more about the automation of those things that actually it's taking up their time, it's wasting their time, to enable them to provide more of the valuable stuff. Is that kind of where the focus is here?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really about, like I said, streamlining. Like, stop wasting time doing the same thing all over again. Like, let's say I've taken multiple courses on copywriting, because copywriting is extremely important. Understanding how to create a hook, understand how to grab people's attention. Because nowadays you have 6 to 8 seconds to grab somebody's attention. But I would argue that it's more 2 to 4 seconds. If I base it on my reels, and reels are king nowadays, long form content is dying. So reels are king. You have about 2 to 4 seconds to capture somebody's attention. If you're not good at this, nobody's going to watch your stuff. I don't care how good you are. So those are the things that's not going to change. That's the way that we are. And I would push it even further. For you, it feels right. Somebody that's being authentic, somebody that is a real human being. But for some people, seeing AI to them is totally fine too. But one thing I would argue is the same people that are not looking for authentic human are not very self-aware. So those are not the people I want to work with. Those are not the people that resonates with my message either way. So this is why it's interesting. There's no studies on that because it's too young. But I wouldn't be surprised that 10, 15 years from now, we'll be able to sit down and look at the stats and say, oh, it's interesting. People that we do A and B testing. Real person, AI person. Everything's perfect on the AI, but they sound like AI. But everything imperfect with a real human being. Who connects with who? Then go into what's the type of personality that those people are. What type of job do they do? Are they happy? Are they connected? Do they meditate? Like, I guarantee you that all the people that are self-aware will like authenticity coming from a human being. And all the people that are not self-aware will be okay with watching AI take over everything. So this is where do those people fit, right?
Yeah, there's Nico being controversial. I think, you were saying about, I'll say how it is. There it is. There's a lovely thing there. But there's a lovely clarity with what you say there, because you can kind of feel it already, can't you? Those people who are thinking of AI as something that is just going to prevent me from having to do the things that I really don't want to be doing. And yeah, as a trade-off, if I don't need to do those and I can use AI to solve those problems, okay, as a trade-off, I'm willing to then have to consume AI content. So I'm going to enter into this AI world because there's enough in it for me. Whereas people who kind of almost see through that and think, no, I still want the authenticity, so I'm willing to take a little bit longer to consume it because it's not going to be in the click of my fingers. It's going to take a little bit longer. So the video shorts, for example, they're not 4 or 5 seconds AI, they're 20 seconds or 30 seconds because it's a real person, because it takes longer to consume it. Then that's okay, isn't it? That's really positive.
It's really who's the audience you're pushing your stuff to? Who are you trying to impact? Who are you trying to help? And the thing is, if you look at social media is the greatest marketing tool ever invented. You can literally put as much as you want or as less as you want. And again, I go back to that mastermind group that I'm part of. I look at most of those people, and they're not people I would hang out with. They're not people I would have in my life, because they use social media platform as a marketing tool, which I do as well. Don't get me wrong, but my intent is to help. It is not to profit off of people. And the people that are ready to profit, that just sees their followers as a money sign, those are the people I guarantee you that will embrace AI, because that means they don't have to create content anymore. They can feed it off to something else. It's going to, and in their mind, is going to bring them closer to what they want. It's going to give them more time to do something else. I'd rather personally, I will spend more time creating content that is me, research what I'm talking about, produce it in a way that's appealing to people. I will use AI in order to I use AI as a brainstorming thing. I talk to AI like it's a friend or an employee. I'm sitting there, I ask questions. I'm like, okay, I want to do this. What do you think? Okay, you know what? I like what you wrote. I'll rewrite it all. Now, what do you think? Oh, maybe you should try this. But this is how I use a lot of AI. Like, I've tried, like, let's say I was curious about faceless videos, because this is a big trend right now. People are so lazy that they don't even want to record in front of that camera. They'd rather just have a voiceover that's AI. It's not even them talking. They didn't even write the text, and the images, the videos are all put together by AI. I tested it, and I'm like, you know what? It's not bad. But man, can I see through it right away. Right away, I can see through it. I can take you through it, if I have a client that wants to do it, or a potential customer, I'm like, you know what? No problem. I can show you exactly how to do it. No problem. But at the end of the day, the content shows for it. What do you want? What are you trying to put out there? If, like me, I'm trying to help men become better men. That's half of the stuff that I do. And then the other half, I want to help other men, build bigger platform, create more rapport with their audience. This is what really where I use AI. How do I make them, instead of when you're brainstorming, instead of taking 3 hours to write something, maybe you take 20 minutes because you have somebody that's you can pitch it out. They send it right back. They're like, oh, hey, actually, I never thought about saying it this way. So you rewrite it. This is where the power is. This is where, can you use AI to take videos, turn long form content like this podcast into reels? Absolutely. Do they do as good as a job as one of my video editors? Nowhere close. Nowhere close. And I've tried them all. Nowhere close. And the numbers don't lie. I can tell you right now that I could take the same 3 minutes, give it to AI, give it to one of my employees, and say, okay, AI, give me the best reel that you can in here. I'll get it to my employee. You give me the best reel. On average, it takes an hour to an hour and a half for a reel by one of my guys to be produced with the B-roll, the captions, the music, everything, right? The whole look is done. On AI, it will take it about 2 minutes to produce the reel. But then you're going to spend 30 minutes correcting all the mistakes that it's done. And you end up realizing that it's not even that great of a reel. So again, is AI changing everything? It is helping a lot. But I know the type of content that my viewers respond to. I know the type of content that the people I'm trying to help respond to. AI does not understand. So can it work? Yes. But I guarantee you that if you create most of your stuff using all the AI tools possible out there, your content will be fake. When the content is said and done, give me any piece of content, give me a day to reproduce it. I'll do a better job than you do, and I'll do it myself.
Do you think there will ever come a time, Nico, when your digital twin, so your avatar, so the avatar of Nico is on a podcast with my digital twin, the avatar of Neil, and our two avatars are talking. We're not involved. And then your avatar comes back and reports what it was like and shares the conversation with you. And mine comes back and talks to me. So as human beings, we don't interact, but our digital twins do. Can you see there being a value there? Because, of course, you can do that at scale. We are limited to a person of one. But if we could let our digital twins go off into the world and forge relationships, digital avatar kind of relationships with each other, and then report back kind of, I don't know, market insight or trends or how to create, amazing content or, how to grow your profile of your personal brand or whatever. But we physically don't need to connect. Our avatars do it. Can you ever see a time when that becomes a reality, or that actually does add some value?
There's two things I would say about this. First, if you and I, as the main person, the real person, we build avatars so that they AR avatars that deals with other AI avatars, the content that they're going to create is going to be about other AI avatars. They're not going to be they're going to be creating. So basically, we all have twins. We all have AI twins that are going to be creating contents for other AI twins. Is there value in this? Possibly. There's always a way to monetize something. Do I see personally as a person? Will I ever go that route? No. Absolutely not. Zero. Absolutely never going to happen. What's the most valuable thing that you have in your life?
You're asking me for my time. Yes. Yeah.
Is the most. We don't know how much of it we have, so it's so precious. By me spending time with you right now is the biggest gift I can give you, because that hour that we're together, I'm never going to get it back. So this to me is the greatest gift I can give to somebody, is literally give myself to somebody for X number of time. Now you're talking about a situation where I lack so much respect for others that I will not even involve myself personally in the process of getting to know other people. I will simply create an avatar that is not me, that will never be me, that will never understand what it is to have lived the life that I've lived. You could download my neural pathways and somehow duplicate somebody. They wouldn't understand what it is. They would not be mentally tough the way I am. They would not have the pain tolerance that I have. They wouldn't understand what it takes to hold the hand of somebody that's dying. They would never understand those things. So basically, you're asking me if I see a good possibility of creating a world that is so fake that I refuse to give my time to the people that are out there. I refuse to create new links with people. I refuse to give myself to people. Can it be a more fake world? I can't imagine a worse world to live in than a world where people refuse to be themselves with other people. Is it going to happen? Yes, 100%. We're on that path. I know for a fact that it's going to happen. But there are people that are going to embrace it, and there are going to say no. Same thing as people live in the city, and some people live in the country because they don't want to deal with the craziness of the people in the city. Like, to me, it's the same thing. We have a dystopian future if you look at it with a lack of understanding. And again, I'll bring it back to the same thing we've been talking about: accountability and self-awareness. This is where it starts. Are you okay with forging fake relationships, thinking that you understand other fake people? At the end of the day, you're going to be creating content, products, services for fake people. So everything that you do is fake. Is that really the purpose of a human being? No. Are you going to be happy in your life? Absolutely not. So what's the price? What's the price you want to pay for this?
And there's a really profound but so important question, I think, for people to reflect on after this. Where is the value? What price are you willing to pay? Yeah. If anybody wants to keep the human in AI and they want to connect with Nico, because this is what we're kind of evangelizing here. Ultimately, at the end of this hour, it's like, let's keep the human. AI is great, but let's keep the human too. And these 100%. Things can coexist if we're doing it properly. How can people connect with you? Where would you like them to be heading after this conversation?
They can go to my video production company. That's plproduction.co, and everything's on there. All the services that we offer is there. But it's interesting what you're saying, because one of the quotes is dedicated to accelerating your brand's growth through advanced digital marketing, blending AI innovation with a human touch. Because at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. You always have to have that human touch in order to make it. Who are you talking to? Am I talking to robots? Let AI do it. Am I talking to humans? You have to have a human touch somewhere to make it authentic.
And that's just a lovely piece to end on. And, I just really enjoyed this conversation, Nico. Thank you so much for spending this hour of your life with me. I genuinely really appreciate it. That was just so beautifully put. And I think anybody listening to this now, they come to the end of this podcast, they'll be thinking, actually, that was an hour invested of time. That wasn't an hour of spent time. And I think that's key. We should all be thinking about investment of time, not spending our time doing things. Let's invest our time doing things. And, for me, this was a real investment of time. It's reminded me, go look in the mirror, make sure I eat healthily my meal tonight, and all of the above, because AI or no AI, actually, we're still needing to be human tomorrow, because we want to live and breathe another day, don't we, all of us? So it's been a really, really inspiring conversation, Nico. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for, this is not where I think we would be going. I never thought I'd be philosophizing. I'd be talking about AI philosophy. So yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I've never talked about this before. It's interesting. We are definitely at a crossroad when it comes to how do we mold, how much do we integrate technology with the way that we are. Very interesting. But I appreciate your time. I appreciate the question, because I've never been asked that before. So thank you.
This one feels like it's a to be continued.
Anytime. As you can tell, I talk a lot. So I always have something to say. So anytime.
That's great. We will do this. We'll keep in touch and do this when we see these new platforms come through. It'll be brilliant. Great. Thanks again, Nico.
Yeah, thanks for your time.